It's time to make things nuclear. Today, we're here to find out what's fact, what's fear, and what it really means for the Philippines.
Pero I think if we explain it in simple terms, makikita nilang hindi ito something to fear.
On behalf of the Department of Energy.
For every Filipino.
And that's where we're saying nuclear energy comes in. Kasi kaya nitong magbigay ng steady, baseload power for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Hindi siya umaasa sa panahon. We're very high. It just came from Chernobyl. So the fear of that accident really stifled any nuclear development.
Keep asking questions, stay curious. It's time to make things nuclear. Welcome to our very first episode. If you're listening on your way to work, driving, or just tuning in from home, magandang araw sa inyo. Beyond the Reaction is the podcast where we talk about everything they never taught you about nuclear energy. And I know some of you might be thinking right now, nuclear, delikado yan. But today, we're here to find out what's fact, what's fear, and what it really means for the Philippines. I'm Espina, and together we will unpack this topic one question at a time, clearly, calmly, and without the scary headlines. And joining us to make things crystal clear is someone who knows the subject inside and out, Director Patrick Aquino from the Department of Energy.
Hi, Charms! Hi sa lahat ng mga nakikinig at nanonood. Alam mo, excited talaga akong makasama kayo ngayon. Kasi madalas, pag naririnig ng mga tao yung nuclear, matik, kabado na agad. Pero I think if we explain it in simple terms, makikita nilang hindi ito something to fear. It's something to understand.
Exactly. And I think that is the most important reason why the show exists, to make things clear, not complicated. We'll be talking about the safety, the science, and most importantly, how this affects every Filipino household.
Tama. Kasi sa dulo, gusto lang naman nating lahat ng maaasahan, malinis, at abot kayang kuryente, di ba?
Exactly, Director Patrick. So I think it's really important that we will dive in right now and talk about what really happens before and beyond the reaction. Director Patrick, let's start with the biggest question. When people hear nuclear energy, I would think bombs, explosions, radiation, and danger. So let's get this straight. Can a nuclear power plant really explode like an atomic bomb?
Hindi po talaga, Miss Charms. Magkaibang-magkaiba yung nuclear bomb sa nuclear power plant. Ang bomba ginawa yan para sumabog, while ang nuclear power plant ginawa para gumawa ng kuryente in a controlled, slow, and safe manner.
So it's not one wrong button away from a massive explosion, from going boom.
Hindi talaga, ma'am. Kung iisipin mo, para ka lang nagluluto. Yung bomba, biglang apoy, sabog, boom. Pero yung nuclear energy, think about it as slow cooking. Steady lang yung init, minomonitor 24/7, at may safety systems na nakabang palagi.
Well, okay, that's a really good and understandable way to put it. So to simplify, Director, let's say the nuclear plant is like a pressure cooker, no? Kung sa weapon, sinadya mong pasabugin yung pressure cooker, sabay-sabay at sobrang bilis ang reaksyon. Pero sa nuclear energy, parang dahan-dahang pagluluto, right? Kontrolado, tuloy-tuloy, at you just said ligtas, so it's safe.
Yeah, exactly. Sa weapons, mabilis at sabay-sabay yung chain reaction eh. Para mong biglang tinodo yung apoy if you're cooking. Kaya sasabog ang niluto mo. Pero sa nuclear energy, dahan-dahan lang. Kinokontrol yung reaction para steady lang yung init na ginagamit mo sa paggawa ng kuryente. And to be clear, kung magkaaberya, may mga safety systems na automatic na hihinto agad para hindi na lumala.
Okay, that makes sense. But, Director, for people who remember Chernobyl or Fukushima, okay? Those were not weapons.
Correct.
Pero malalaki pa rin yung naging epekto. How can we be sure that that will not happen again?
That's a very, 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 very good question and a very, very, very valid concern. Totoo naman yan eh. Things are different now. Different ang technology. Let's go back to Chernobyl. That was in 1986, if you recall. Kulang yun sa safety design and more importantly sa transparency. When you zoom into 2011 in Fukushima, that was a natural disaster. There was a earthquake and then a tsunami followed. Just to be clear, the plant didn't explode per se. The reason for the plant explosion in Fukushima, just to be clear, was that the backup systems were overwhelmed by the tsunami because the design at that time did not meet that requirement, which is now it's a requirement. So those two instances are a big lessons for us. It's a lesson for all of us in the world from that point on. Now, our modern nuclear power plants, they have automatic shutdown systems. They have multiple layers of protection. And more importantly, that international oversight. Hindi na siya pwedeng basta nilang sumabog kagaya ng bomba.
So you're saying that there are a lot of safety mechanisms built into the system itself?
Yes, and exactly, we're learning every time there's an incident, which happens few and far between. And that's not all. There are now independent, and it has been an independent regulator ever since, the International Atomic Energy Agency or IAEA, who regularly audits nuclear facilities. And now with AI, there's also AI monitoring. So to be clear, kung pumalya man sa isang safety system, there is a third, there is a fourth, and so on and so forth that will come in. All of these are designed so that even if there's human error, that power plant can still automatically shut down safely.
So you're saying, Director, that the science evolved, obviously, from Chernobyl. That was a long time ago. The systems evolved and more safeguards evolved as well.
Tama. Ang nuclear technology ngayon, it's not like those from the 80s. It's safer, it's smarter, and it's designed to protect both people and the planet.
We all know the Philippines is on the Pacific Ring of Fire. We're talking massive earthquakes, destructive typhoons, and crazy volcanoes. Now, the big question is, can we really build nuclear power plants safely in this country? Director.
Yes, Charms. Basta tamang lugar, tamang disenyo. Hindi pwedeng basta tayo magtayo kung saan lang natin gusto. May higit pang site selection process. Tinitignan natin fault lines, soil stability, proximity sa water for cooling, pati emergency routes.
So before the construction even begins, everything has been studied very tediously and scientifically.
Exactly. And even modern power plants, nuclear power plants at that matter, kaya nilang tiisin even the strongest earthquakes. For example, in Japan, there have been a couple of strong earthquakes, but there was no broken reactor because safety was the primary consideration. If there's ever an abnormal movement of the land, the plants do an automatic shutdown.
So we are preparing these plants to withstand the unpredictability of nature, not to gamble with it.
Yes, that's why we have the international requirements, as I mentioned to you. IAEI, in fact, has that safety seismic standard na even before you start construction, you have to observe it. The most expensive plants right now that are being built, the one in the United Kingdom, the reason why it's so expensive is that they didn't talk to the communities. They didn't talk to the environmental regulators. So the ending was, they had to do adjustments. And every time you delay, as with any project, kung nagpagawa kayo ng bahay, for example, if you do variations, costs go up. So that's why when we do it correctly. So can we build a power plant on schedule, on budget? I can tell you yes. Because that's what exactly UAE did. They started 10 years. It took them 7 years to build the first unit. Second unit, 4. Third unit, 3. Now, 2 na lang. So all 4 units of UAE was built in that time span. Again, 80 to 90% Filipino engineers and technical experts. So, kaya ng Pilipino. The point is, there are other considerations at play here.
Okay.
And if the Filipino engineers and technical experts are in charge, I am 100% sure they also don't want their families to be exposed in any hazards. So that for me is the guarantee that they will do everything and anything in their power to make sure every bolt, every cement, every item in that plant is up to specs or exceeds specifications because we only have one country.
Director Patrick, people often imagine toxic, glowing green waste barrels when we talk about nuclear power plants and nuclear energy. But can you tell us what exactly this nuclear waste really look like?
You know, there's no glowing slime, just to be very clear. If you go to a real nuclear power plant, you will not find one. In real life, what you're going to see as nuclear waste is solid. These are fuel rods that are in sealed cement, steel concrete containers. And it's being monitored 24/7 and ready for storage for decades at a time, again, in controlled facilities.
So it's not going to be floating around somewhere, locked up, contained. It's also monitored very well.
Correct. Kasi nga, it's exactly that, you know, our predisposition because we've seen it in movies and in cartoons. And if you even compare it, let's say, for coal and other technologies, specifically coal, nuclear is even cleaner. Kasi sa coal, araw-araw na naglalabas yan ng carbon in our air. Pagdating sa nuclear waste, it's in one place. So it's better managed.
That's interesting. I never thought about it that way. You mean to say, mas tahimik siya at mas disiplinado.
Tama. Nuclear is one of the most heavily regulated and disciplined forms of energy in the world.
Director Patrick, pag-usapan naman natin yung energy mix ng Pilipinas. Ang dami nating renewables ngayon sa bansa. We have solar, we have wind energy, may hydro rin. Pero bakit ba natin kailangan yung nuclear? Isn't that enough already?
That's a very good question and we're asked a lot all the time about it. Ang renewables, maganda naman talaga yan eh. Malinis siya, sustainable, and it's locally available. Pero think about this. It does have limitations, di ba? Pag walang araw, walang hangin, walang supply. So we need something that's consistent. And that's where we're saying nuclear energy comes in. Kasi kaya nitong magbigay ng steady, baseload power for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Hindi siya umaasa sa panahon, kaya perfect partner siya to renewables.
So hindi pala sila magkakompetensya, para silang teammates.
Exactly. Think about it as a basketball team. Solar, wind, your renewables, those are your fast players. Pero kailangan mo rin ng sentro, di ba? Laging nandyan sa court, steady at dependable, and that's nuclear.
Nice analogy, Director. Pero right now, majority ng energy natin imported pa rin, di ba?
Tama. Halos lahat petroleum ang requirements ng Pilipinas, imported yan eh. Kaya nga pag may gulo, taas presyo sa ibang bansa, ramdam ng bawat Pilipino yan agad.
So, ngayon, ano ang ginagawa ng Department of Energy para mabawasan yung dependence na yon?
Just recently, the DOE through the President awarded 8 new petroleum service contracts. Total investments of around $207 million. These are for exploration for local gas, local oil, and hydrogen sources in the Sulusi, Palawan, Cagayan, and even in Cebu. Layunin nitong palakasin yung local energy exploration at unti-unting bawasan yung dependence natin for imported fuel.
So habang tuloy-tuloy ang exploration for other sources, nuclear energy, in other words, can help fill the gaps in the energy supply, in the energy mix.
Exactly. Ang goal naman natin really is to diversify and have a stable energy mix. Renewable for clean power, petroleum for flexibility, and nuclear for a steady and long-term supply. Kung ganito yung setup, hindi tayo basta-bastang natitinag kahit may pagbabago sa global oil prices or even supply disruptions.
So it's just like having our own energy insurance, kumbaga.
Exactly. At dito pumapasok rin yung recently passed na PhilAtom or the Philippine Nuclear Research Energy Program. Through PhilAtom, we're strengthening our international cooperation. Naikipagsundo tayo sa iba't ibang bansa para matuto tayo mula sa kanilang mga nalatag ng nuclear programs. For example, we signed a Memorandum of Understanding with the United States Department of Energy for capacity building and policy development. We also have agreements with South Korea's Korea Atomic Energy Research Institute to explore small modular reactors or SMRs. There's also technical discussions with France EDF for feasibility studies. And even with Russia's Rosatom, there's knowledge exchange on nuclear infrastructure.
Wow, ang dami na palang international partnerships natin.
Yes, kasi nga ang pag-develop ng nuclear energy, hindi ito kayang gawin ng mag-isa ng kahit anong bansa. It takes cooperation, technology sharing, and capacity building. Lahat ng ginagawa ng DOE at ng government para siguradong steady, safe, at world standard ang magiging programa natin when it comes to nuclear.
So while we continue to grow our renewable energy sector and our petroleum exploration, nuclear will then help complete the picture. And you're mentioning that nuclear is steady, safe, and reliable energy for everybody.
Tama. At the end of it, yun naman ang goal natin, di ba? Energy that's secure, that's affordable, and sustainable for every Filipino.
You mentioned earlier, Director Patrick, that nuclear technology today is much safer. But we'd like you to walk us through it. How exactly has it evolved through the years?
First and foremost, it's really a lot has changed. Talagang malaki yung pinagbago. Before, reactors needed constant manual monitoring. So there has to be 24/7, there's a person there. Ngayon, with the advent of digital control systems, your sensors, AI-assisted detection, and automatic safety triggers, like yung Gen 4 reactors right now, they're designed with that walk-away safe. Meaning, kahit iwan mo yan, safe pa rin yan. Walang magiging scenario na pwedeng sumabog o mag-leak na rin yung systems right now.
Okay, so it's just like comparing how our old, hollow block phones, smartphones before evolved to the technology that we have right now. You know, these smartphones we have are smarter, faster, and safer.
And more importantly, it's much more safe and much more efficient right now. At bukod sa safety, mas efficient na rin. Mas konting fuel, pero mas maraming energy ang nililika. That means less waste, but more power.
Okay, Director Patrick, we have talked about how nuclear energy works and why it matters. Pero ngayon, ito naman yung tanong ng marami. Kailan naman natin ito makikita sa totoong buhay? When can we actually expect a nuclear power plant in the Philippines?
Well, it's a very good question. It's a very valid question, actually. Right now, let's just be clear, we're still in the preparatory stage. Ibig sabihin nun, the policy framework, we're still studying the potential sites, and we're doing the consultations in the local communities. But if we keep up the progress, we could start seeing real movement within the decade.
So step by step ang ginagawa natin, hindi natin minamadali.
Yes, because sa ganitong klaseng proyekto, we should understand we have to be maingat and transparent. That's why the DOE and the NEPIAC is engaging local communities early on. There are public consultations, in schools we do talks, and even information campaigns para malinaw kung ano yung plano at paano ito gagawin. We also work closely with the international regulators to make sure everything meets global standards and for transparency and safety.
At syempre, important rin na involved lahat ng stakeholders, no? I think this is great to hear kasi let's be honest, people just don't want electricity. We want to trust where it's coming from.
That's exactly the word that we want to say. Trust is part of energy security. Kung walang tiwala sa pinagkukumulan ng enerhiya, hindi magiging sustainable yung program.
Speaking of trust, kailangan ko na rin itanong to. Okay? Ano ba talaga ang plano para sa Bataan Nuclear Power Plant? I think that is the question na ang tagal-tagal na natin gustong malaman yung sagot. Kasi parang naging white elephant siya in the room na ayaw pag-usapan ng mga tao.
That's a very good question. Talagang, BNPP or Bataan Nuclear Power Plant, it was completed in the 80s. But it was never run using the nuclear fuel. Let me just dispel, that's another myth. It ran using other fuel, but not nuclear. At that time, the safety concerns, we've talked about it earlier, were very high. It just came from Chernobyl. So the fear of that accident really stifled any nuclear development at the time. Pero since then, we've maintained it. It has been inspected regularly just to make sure that the structure is sound. So on the part of the DOE, we've been working with the International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, as well as other international experts to determine ano nga ba, can BNPP be rehabilitated? Or is it much more practical for us to just build a new, more modern, more safe nuclear facility?
So parang may dalawang options, Director, no? Either i-repurpose natin yung Bataan Nuclear Power Plant or magtayo ng panibagong plant using newer techs.
That's correct. You know, kasama naman yan sa National Nuclear Energy Roadmap natin eh. Pinag-aaralan natin yan pareho, both to rehab BNPP as a reference, and at the same time, we're exploring about small modular reactors or SMRs. These are more compact, more efficient, and have passive safety features that can automatically shut down if may aberya.
So hindi pa totally sarado yung usapan. So this time, we are prioritizing safety and the science of it. That comes first.
Ever since, just to be very clear, science and safety has been the primary consideration. BNPP actually serves, two things. It serves as a lesson and a legacy for us. Lesson, kasi it shows us the importance of being ready and transparency. Legacy, kasi it reminds us how much potential we already have here. Ang mahalaga ngayon, bawat hakbang ay base sa siyensya, tamang proseso, malinaw ang komunikasyon sa publiko.
Well, that's reassuring for everyone. So it's not about just rushing to say, we have a nuclear power plant, let's open it. It's about doing it right. It's doing it safely and openly, being transparent with everybody, all the stakeholders on board.
Exactly. Nuclear energy is a long-term investment. Hindi lang yan any ordinary infrastructure. Kung walang tiwala yung tao, it's not gonna fly. At yan ang tunay na pundasyon ng any nuclear energy program at energy future ng Pilipinas.
Okay, before we wrap up, let's talk about something you mentioned earlier, Director. Small modular reactors or SMRs. They sound like the future. What exactly are they?
Well, it's still in the future, but it's actually already here. Small modular reactors are your smaller, safer, and faster to build nuclear power plants that can be deployed in islands or rural areas that don't have access to the main grid. Think about this. Imagine Palawan or Masbate having their own clean local power supply. That's what SMR promises.
That's great. So even smaller communities can be part of the clean energy transition.
Exactly. That's the goal for, after all eh. Energy for all, hindi lang siya para sa mga syudad.
And Director Patrick, I think that's what this podcast is all about. It's about asking the right questions, learning together, and understanding all of these facts about nuclear energy step by step.
Some of the things that you raised, we've not touched on, and I think we should be talking about.
Yeah, we should, because stakeholders will be asking these questions. And I did ask this to Sean.
Hi, Sean.
He mentioned that maybe we shouldn't talk about it, but maybe you want to talk about it?
We can talk about it. There's nothing that's off limits because if we keep topics off limits and we don't answer the hard questions, how do we expect communities in the chosen locations to say yes? Mm-hmm. We deprive them of that opportunity to have that conversation or listen into that discussion. So very much in favor to ask, the tough questions.
Right.
Kasi ganun talaga eh.
So with that, Director Patrick, I think it's time we say it.
Ready?
Yep. It's time to make things nuclear. All right, thank you so much, Director Patrick Aquino. And to everyone listening out there, keep asking questions, stay curious, and support energy solutions that truly power progress for every Filipino. This has been Beyond the Reaction. I'm Sharms Espina. See you in the next episode.